My mother emptied my college fund, claiming it was, can you imagine your own mother stealing every single penny your deceased father saved for your college? What she didn't know was that her betrayal wasn't just about money. It was the spark that ignited the complete destruction of her own life, while ultimately saving mine. So I was 17 and my mom, Rachel, remarried this guy, Howard. He came with two twin boys, Bradley and Bentley, who were 10. Now, I'd been working since I was 14, every paycheck going into this college fund my dad set up for me before he passed when I was just 8. He'd left $60,000 in life insurance specifically for it, and I'd added another $15,000. That money was mine legally once I turned 18, which was just 3 months away. Mom was the custodian, but she'd never put a dime in. Still, she'd bragged to everyone about how she was saving for my education. From day one, those twins were spoiled rotten. Howard bought them anything they looked at: new bikes, gaming systems, designer clothes. My mom, Rachel, jumped right in, saying they needed to feel welcomed. She started spending her own money on them, which, fine, whatever. But then she'd make these passive-aggressive comments like, "Oh, it's so expensive raising real children," or "You're lucky you only have to worry about yourself." I was an only child, but suddenly it was like I was invisible. The twins called her mom right away. Rachel cried happy tears, saying she finally had the sons she always wanted. When I dared to ask what I was, she just said I was practically an adult and should be happy for her. She started introducing them as her boys and me as Howard's stepdaughter. People would literally correct her, saying, "No, you mean your daughter." And she'd just laugh it off. "Oh, right. I get confused with all these kids." It was like a constant, sharp little stab to the heart. Then, 3 weeks before my 18th birthday, I went online to check my college fund balance. My heart almost stopped. 0. Completely empty. $75,000 gone. I called the bank, thinking it had to be fraud. They told me the custodian, my mom, had legally withdrawn it all 2 days earlier. I confronted her immediately. She was sitting with the twins, doing their homework, which was something she never did with me. I asked her where my college money was. She didn't even look up. Just calmly said she'd used it for the twins' education and activities. Said real children deserve real futures, and I'd be fine with community college and loans like everyone else. Howard backed her up, telling me I should be grateful they'd housed me this long, and family shares resources. The twins actually laughed. Bradley smirked. "Now we can have the best of everything." Bentley added, "You can work at McDonald's while we go to private school." My mother said nothing. She just kept looking at me with this cold, dismissive stare. I reminded her it was my dead father's money for my education. Her response? "Your father would understand that living children matter more than old promises." She called me selfish for expecting to hoard family money when the twins had actual potential. She'd already spent it all. Private school, new cars for them when they turned 16, and investments in Howard's name. That night, I overheard her telling Howard how proud she was to provide for her real children. How the twins deserved everything, and I'd gotten enough attention for 18 years. She even said that once I left for whatever cheap school I could afford, they'd convert my room into a game room for the boys. My blood ran cold. But a tiny seed of something else had been planted in my mind earlier that week. My grandmother, my mom's mom, had been sick and was updating her will. Grandma had always planned to leave everything to Mom, her only child, about $400,000 in assets, plus the house. Mom was counting on that money. She'd already told Howard they'd buy a bigger house when Grandma passed. What Mom didn't know was that Grandma had quietly added me directly to her will recently. She'd wanted to make sure I got something since Dad was gone. I went to Grandma's house and told her everything. How Mom stole my college fund, how she said it was for her real children, how she didn't consider me her daughter anymore. Grandma was furious. Turns out, she'd actually contributed $5,000 to my fund years ago. She asked to see my bank statements showing the withdrawal. I also showed her the twins' school enrollment papers, which I'd secretly grabbed from Mom's home office. Grandma called her lawyer that same day. She changed her entire will. Mom got nothing. Not a single penny. Everything went to me, with a specific condition. I couldn't share it with Mom, ever. The house would be mine. The money would be mine. Even the family jewelry Mom had been eyeing for years would be mine. Grandma then called my mother and told her she knew about the theft. Mom tried to lie, but Grandma had the proof. She told Mom she was disgusted that she'd steal from her own daughter for kids she'd known less than 2 years. Mom panicked and drove over, but Grandma wouldn't let her in. Grandma lived another 18 months. During that time, Mom tried absolutely everything to get back into her good graces. When Grandma passed, Mom showed up to the will reading in a brand new black dress, practically vibrating with anticipation for her inheritance. She'd already told Howard's family she was about to be rich. She posted on social media about her grief, but also about how Grandma's legacy would live on through her real children. The lawyer read the will. Everything to her granddaughter. My mother's face went from expectant to absolutely ghost white, like someone had slapped her. She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor, then crashed backward. Her hands shook, then clenched into fists, her expression shifting from shock to pure, unfiltered rage. She started screaming, "This is impossible. You poisoned her against me. You manipulated a sick old woman." She yelled that I was ungrateful and selfish, that I should be happy to sacrifice for my brothers. How dare I question her decisions as my mother? She knew what was best for this family. The twins sat there at the homework table with these satisfied smirks, like they were watching their favorite TV show. Howard, ever the supportive husband, put an arm around Mom, telling me I was being dramatic. He said I needed to accept that family means sharing everything. Bradley laughed. "She's just jealous we're getting the good stuff." Bentley piped up. "She deserves to be poor." My mother just glared at me, not saying a word to them, cementing her stance. I was the problem. I went straight to my room and locked the door. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called the bank again. I asked if there was any way to reverse the withdrawal or report it as theft. The woman on the phone sounded sympathetic, but explained that since Mom was the legal custodian until I turned 18, the withdrawal was technically legal. She said I might have civil legal options once I was 18, but criminal charges would be almost impossible. The money was just
gone.
I thanked her and hung up, sitting there, staring at my wall. $75,000.
Poof.
I spent the next 2 days locked in my room, researching lawyers and legal options online. I printed out everything I could find about custodial account laws and my rights. I discovered that while Mom's actions were technically legal, they might be considered a breach of fiduciary duty, since the account was for my education. The article said I'd need proof the money was spent on something other than my benefit. I started documenting everything: conversations, dates, what was said. I copied account statements showing Dad's original deposit and every penny I had added. I even retrieved the twins' private school enrollment papers from Mom's office, copied them, and put them back. Photos of new gaming equipment, designer clothes. I was building a case, even if I wasn't sure I'd ever use it. Mom avoided me completely, for 3 days. She wouldn't even look at me. Howard kept cornering me, demanding I apologize for my attitude, saying I was tearing the family apart. On the 3rd night, I was getting water in the kitchen when I heard Mom on the phone in the living room. She was talking about what happened, saying she did what any good mother would do. She had to prioritize the children who actually needed her over the one who's practically an adult. She laughed, then added that I would be fine with student loans like everyone else, that I was always too entitled anyway. She said the twins deserved everything because they had real potential, and I'd gotten enough attention for 18 years. I stood there in the dark kitchen, listening to my own mother explain why I didn't matter anymore. Sunday came, and I drove to Martha's house for our regular dinner. We'd had this tradition since I was tiny. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and just knew. She pulled me inside, sat me at our kitchen table, and when she asked what happened, everything poured out. The theft, Mom's twisted justifications, the twins' cruelty, being called not a real child. My voice kept breaking. especially when I told her mom said dad would understand. Living children matter more than old promises. Martha's face went from concerned to absolutely furious. I showed her the bank statements on my phone, and she asked me to email her copies of everything immediately. I did it right there. She held my hand, telling me this wasn't right, that what mom did was wrong, no matter what the law said. She promised she would help. Monday morning, Martha called her lawyer. I didn't know until I visited her that evening. She sat me down and explained that she had been updating her will anyway, due to her age and health. But now, she was making significant changes. She told me that mom was supposed to inherit everything, the $400,000 in assets and the house. But after seeing how mom treated me and stole from me, she was cutting her out completely. Everything would go to me instead. I just stared, not really understanding at first. Martha explained mom had been counting on that inheritance, already made plans for it. Now she would get nothing. I felt this wave of guilt. I told Martha she didn't have to do this, that I just needed someone to believe me. Martha took both my hands, looked me in the eye, and said this wasn't about punishment. It was about making sure her money went to someone who deserved it and would use it properly. She said she'd watched mom become someone she didn't recognize. She wouldn't reward stealing from a child, especially one who lost their father so young. Martha said dad would want me taken care of, and she was going to make sure that happened. Tears streamed down my face, and she hugged me, telling me I was her granddaughter, and she loved me no matter what mom said. 2 days later, Martha's lawyer, Seal, came with the new will documents. Martha had asked me to be there. He spread the papers out on her dining room table, explaining each section. Martha was making me the sole beneficiary of her entire estate, including the house, all financial assets, and her jewelry collection that mom had been eyeing for years. Seal explained the will included a specific clause preventing me from sharing any inheritance with mom under any circumstances. He said it would protect me from being pressured. Martha signed each page carefully while I watched, feeling like my whole world was shifting. Right after signing, Martha decided to call mom. She put the phone on speaker. Mom answered, all cheerful, probably expecting Martha to make up after their last conversation. Martha's voice was ice cold as she told mom she knew about the stolen college fund. She had seen the bank statements. Mom tried to lie, then switched to justifying it, her voice getting defensive. She said the twins deserved good educations too, and I was being selfish. Martha's voice grew even colder. She told mom she was disgusted by what she had done. Actions have consequences, she said, and you'll find out what those are soon enough. Then she hung up. Within an hour, mom's car screeched into Martha's driveway. The doorbell rang frantically. Martha told me to go upstairs. I watched from the spare bedroom window. Mom was pounding on the door, face red with fury. Martha spoke through the door, saying she had nothing more to say and mom should leave. Mom started crying, apologizing, begging Martha to let her in. Martha's voice remained firm. Mom kept pounding and yelling for another 10 minutes. Finally, Martha called the police. I watched 2 officers arrive, talk to mom. She was crying, pointing at the house, probably claiming it was her mother's. But Martha had already explained everything. They escorted mom back to her car. As she drove away, her face was twisted in anger. I knew, without a doubt, everything was about to get much worse. Mom's house felt different over the next 3 weeks. She stopped pretending to care about my upcoming birthday. Howard started making comments about how nice it would be to have one less mouth to feed. The twins drew a countdown calendar on the fridge whiteboard, adding little insults. Day 21. Freeloader leaves soon. Day 18. Finally getting rid of the dead weight. Day 15. Game room coming. I stopped eating dinner with them. I'd grab food and eat in my room or just skip meals. My 18th birthday fell on a Tuesday. I woke up expecting nothing, and that's exactly what I got. No card, no cake mix, no present. Rachel walked past me in the hallway without acknowledging the date. I left for school early. When I came home that afternoon, the house was empty. There was a note on the counter from Rachel saying they'd gone out to celebrate at the twins' favorite restaurant. No mention of my birthday. No invitation. Not even a sorry we forgot. I made myself a bowl of cereal and sat in my room, staring at my phone. Around 7 o'clock, Martha called. She sang, "Happy birthday," in her shaky voice, making me cry for the first time all day. She told me she'd opened a new bank account that morning with $5,000. In my name only. She said it was separate from any inheritance stuff, just birthday money to help me get started. I thanked her a million times. The house stayed quiet that night. I heard Rachel and Howard getting the twins ready for bed. Loud, happy voices. Nobody knocked on my door. Nobody said goodnight. I turned 18 completely alone, except for one phone call from the only person who actually cared. The next few weeks got worse. Rachel started making pointed comments about adults contributing to household expenses if they plan to keep living here. Howard would loudly mention how much cheaper their electric bill would be. The twins added new messages to their countdown board every morning. Day 8, maybe she'll leave early. Day 5, almost free. Day 3, bye-bye freeloader. I spent most of my time anywhere but home. School, the library, Martha's house. I'd leave early, come back late. Rachel seemed pleased. She even started converting my room in her mind, measuring the walls one afternoon. She wasn't even embarrassed when I caught her. Just said she was planning the new layout for the boys. I started applying to colleges in November, using the bank account Martha opened. Every application fee came from that $5,000. I knew I'd need full financial aid and scholarships because my college fund was gone forever. The money Rachel stole was spent on things I'd never get back. My top choice school was about 3 hours away, far enough to escape, but close enough to visit Martha. I called their admissions office, carefully explaining my situation without going into too many details. Said my family wouldn't be contributing and I needed aid programs. Anton, the counselor, was incredibly helpful. He asked about my grades and work history, then told me about emergency aid programs for students in difficult family situations. Scholarship opportunities for students whose families refuse to help pay. He thought I'd qualify for a full aid package. I sent in my application that same week. Martha's health started getting worse around Christmas. She'd managed diabetes for years, had heart problems, but suddenly, she seemed weaker. I noticed it first when I helped with groceries. She could barely carry the bags. I started visiting every single day after school. I'd help with housework, make dinner, sit with her while she rested. She'd tell me stories about my dad when he was young, things I'd never heard. Rachel found out I was spending so much time there. She started calling Martha's house constantly. Martha would see Rachel's name on the caller ID and just let it ring. After 2 weeks of ignored calls, Martha blocked Rachel's number completely. I was there, watching her navigate the phone settings with shaky fingers. She looked at me and said she didn't want to hear excuses or lies anymore. Winter dragged on. Rachel grew more aggressive about the twins on social media. Every few days, new photos of expensive stuff, gaming equipment, designer clothes, fancy restaurant meals. Every post had captions about being blessed with amazing sons and how being a real mom was the greatest joy. Family members would comment, asking about me. Aunt Lisa, Uncle Tom. Rachel either ignored them or gave vague responses about me being busy with my adult life now. It was like I'd stopped existing to her completely. In March, Martha ended up in the hospital. Her neighbor called me. Pneumonia, on top of everything else. I rushed over. She was in a regular room when I got there, looking small and tired. I sat with her for hours. Rachel found out somehow, probably through a family friend. She showed up the next morning with flowers and this fake, concerned expression. I watched her perform devoted daughter for the nurses, asking questions, touching Martha's hand. Martha was too weak to argue, but she squeezed my hand tight when I arrived. I quietly told the nurses my grandmother didn't want Rachel visiting. Rachel heard me and caused a huge scene in the hallway, yelling about being banned from her own mother's room. How dare I make decisions about her mom? Security had to escort her out. Martha came home after a week, but needed a nurse daily. During her more alert times, we talk about everything. She told me about my father, how proud he'd be. She regretted not being more involved when I was younger, letting Rachel control their relationship. She talked about her hopes for my future, college, career, happiness. One afternoon, she made me promise something. She grabbed my hand with surprising strength. I had to promise to use the inheritance to build a real life, go to good schools, and never let Rachel make me feel worthless again. I was crying by then, promising everything she asked. I told her she'd shown me what real family love looked like when I thought I'd never have that again. Martha passed away in her sleep on a Tuesday night in late April. The nurse found her the next morning. I got the call at school and left immediately. I sat in Martha's house for hours, just crying, feeling like I'd lost the only family member who actually loved me. Rachel took over the funeral arrangements within hours, called the funeral home, picked everything out, posted long, emotional tributes on social media about her beloved mother and their special bond. She told extended family she was certain Martha had left everything to her, and she planned to use the money to honor her mother's memory. The funeral was 3 days later. I sat in the front row, watching Rachel perform grief, while whispering to Howard about inheritance plans. She told Howard's parents they'd finally buy that bigger house. Mentioned taking the twins to Europe this summer. She'd already called a realtor about listing Martha's house, discussing asking prices loud enough for me to hear from 2 rows away. I stayed quiet through the whole service. Martha's friend sat next to me, holding my hand. She knew the truth. The will reading was scheduled for 1 week after the funeral at Seal's office. Rachel showed up in an expensive new dress, bringing Howard for support. She was already talking about how quickly they could access the funds. Seal asked everyone to sit in his conference room. Rachel and Howard took the chairs directly across from his desk. I sat to the side with Martha's friend. Seal opened a folder and began reading the key provisions. He went through the standard legal language about Martha being of sound mind. Then he reached the part about beneficiaries. He read that Martha was leaving her entire estate to her granddaughter, including the house, all financial assets, and personal property. I watched Rachel's face change. From confident to confused in 2 seconds. Then from confused to absolutely furious. Rachel shot up from her chair so fast it tipped backward and crashed against the wall. Her face went from white to bright red. She started screaming, "This is impossible." She poisoned Martha against me. She manipulated a sick old woman for money. Seal sat perfectly still behind his desk, hands folded, while Rachel shrieked about contesting the will, proving Martha wasn't thinking clearly, how any judge would see I'd taken advantage. Howard grabbed her arm, trying to get her to sit down, but she yanked away. Seal waited until she paused for breath, then spoke in this calm voice that somehow made the room feel colder. He explained the will was created 18 months ago, when Martha was completely healthy and competent. He said it specifically addressed the possibility of challenges and included detailed documentation about why Martha made this choice. Then, he pulled out copies of my bank statements showing the college fund withdrawal and the twins' private school enrollment papers. Rachel's face changed when she saw those documents. She went quiet for maybe 3 seconds, then lunged at me across the room. Howard caught her around the waist and had to physically hold her back while she screamed that I was a thief, that I'd stolen her inheritance, that I destroyed her family. I just sat there, watching her lose it completely. Seal stood up and said the meeting was over, that his office would handle any official challenges through proper legal channels. Rachel was still yelling threats as Howard dragged her toward the door. 2 weeks later, Martha's friend Lori showed up at Rachel's house with a moving truck she'd rented. Rachel and Howard stayed locked in their bedroom the entire time. I only took my clothes, my laptop, the few books and photos that were actually mine. Everything else they'd bought could stay. The twins watched from the living room, making comments about how I was finally leaving, how they'd get my room now. I didn't say anything to them. Lori helped me carry boxes while the movers handled my bed and desk. The whole thing took maybe 3 hours. Martha's house felt huge and empty when we got there. Lori helped me unpack some basics, then made me promise to call if I needed anything. That first night, I sat in Martha's kitchen, eating takeout, and just cried. I cried because Martha was gone, and I never get to thank her enough. I cried because my own mother hated me for not letting her steal from me. I cried because I was 18 and completely alone in this big house. But I also felt safe in a way I hadn't felt in years. No one here would take my things or call me selfish or say I wasn't real family. I could lock the doors and know I was actually protected. The family drama exploded over the next few weeks. Rachel posted this long, rambling thing on social media about how I'd manipulated Martha, how heartbroken she was that her own daughter would do this. Some cousins I barely knew commented, saying they always knew I was trouble. But other relatives started speaking up too. Aunt Karen commented that she remembered Rachel bragging about taking my college money. Uncle Mike said he'd always wondered why Rachel treated me so differently after she remarried. Lori became like an aunt figure, checking on me constantly. She'd show up with groceries or just for coffee, making sure I was okay. She helped me figure out how to pay property taxes and manage the rental properties Martha owned. My phone kept buzzing with calls from Rachel's number. I'd listen to the voicemails sometimes. Some were her crying about how I'd ruined her life. Others were her screaming threats about lawyers and lawsuits. A few were her trying to guilt-trip me about family and forgiveness. I blocked her number after about 30 messages. Then texts started coming from random numbers, but I recognized her writing style. Some cousins reached out privately, saying they were proud of me for getting away from her. They said they'd watched Rachel change and knew this inheritance thing wasn't really about money. By August, I was enrolled at the college I'd dreamed about since sophomore year. The financial aid office gave me a full package once they saw my situation. Martha's inheritance covered my living expenses and books. I picked business management as my major because I wanted to learn how to handle the rental properties Martha left me. Sometimes, late at night, I'd still feel sad thinking about Rachel. Not the Rachel who stole from me and called the twins her real children, but the mom I remembered from before Dad died. The one who used to make me breakfast and help with homework. That person was gone, though. Maybe she had been gone for years, and I just didn't want to see it. I was learning that DNA doesn't automatically make someone family. Real family doesn't steal from you or make you feel worthless. Martha showed me what actual love looked like in those last 18 months. She gave me a foundation to build a real life on. I was determined to make her proud and never let anyone treat me like I was nothing ever again. What do you think? If you were in my shoes, would you have ever been able to forgive your mother? Let me know in the comments below.